The spark that ignited the stars. The endless void of space stretched before the Loreen surveillance vessel like a dark canvas spotted with distant stars. Inside the ship's cramped bridge, Officer KRK drummed his fingers against the control panel, his scaled skin reflecting the soft blue glow of the monitors. Another mundane day of watching the supposedly primitive planet Zeus, or so he thought. "I'm detecting an anomaly in Sector 7, Haro announced, adjusting his glasses with one of his 4 arms while the others danced across the holographic interface. It's a human vessel." Kark's head snapped up, his boredom instantly forgotten. Humans weren't supposed to be this far out in space. According to the Galactic Council's assessment, Earth's technology was centuries behind the rest of the civilized worlds. Yet there it was, a sleek, silver ship cutting through the darkness with an elegance that defied all their preconceptions. "Impossible," Harrig muttered from his station, his usually calm demeanor disturbed. "The Council assured us humans were contained within their solar system. They shouldn't have ships capable of reaching Zeus." KRK felt something stir within him, a mixture of excitement and contempt. For cycles upon cycles, they'd been stationed here, watching nothing but space dust and the occasional meteor. Now, finally, something interesting had wandered into their sector. "Should we report this to command?" Haro asked, his voice carrying a note of concern. Kark's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "And wait another cycle for bureaucratic approval? This is our chance to prove ourselves. These humans need to learn their place." Without warning, Kark's fingers flew across the weapons console. A burst of plasma erupted from their ship's forward cannons, streaking through space toward the human vessel. To everyone's surprise, the Earth ship performed an impossible maneuver, spinning on its axis and diving beneath the plasma burst. "By the void," Harrig whispered, "their reaction time, it's beyond anything in our database." The human ship's engines flared to life, and before anyone could process what was happening, it accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible for Earth technology. KRK fired again and again, each shot missing as the vessel executed increasingly complex evasive patterns. "Stop firing!" Harrig shouted, but it was too late. The damage was done. The human ship suddenly disappeared in a flash of light that none of their instruments could explain. Teleportation technology. Another impossibility according to their intelligence reports. "What have you done?" Haro's voice trembled. "You've violated at least 7 interstellar protocols. If that ship reaches Earth." Kark's excitement turned to dread as the implications of his actions sank in. He had acted on impulse, driven by boredom and prejudice, and now they were all in danger. "We have to catch them," he declared. "We have to stop them before they can report this." The next few hours were a blur of pursuit and desperate calculations. Their ship pushed its engines to their limits, following the quantum wake left by the human vessel. But deep in their hearts, they knew it was futile. The humans had already demonstrated capabilities far beyond what should have been possible. Then came the transmission that changed everything. The main screen erupted with static before resolving into an image that made their blood run cold. The space around Zeus was filled with Earth ships, hundreds of them, appearing out of nowhere through the same inexplicable teleportation technology they'd witnessed earlier. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force," a stern human voice announced across all frequencies. "Your unprovoked attack on one of our survey vessels constitutes an act of war. We have already neutralized your orbital defenses around Zeus. Surrender immediately, or face the consequences." The bridge fell silent as the reality of their situation sank in. Their supposedly routine surveillance mission had just triggered an interstellar war with a species they had grievously underestimated. "How?" Haro whispered, his scientific mind struggling to process what they were seeing. "How did they build all this without anyone knowing?" Harrig's expression darkened. "They didn't just build it recently. They've had this capability all along. The Council was wrong about everything." Kark's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "We need to warn the Council. The humans, they're not what we thought they were. They're not primitive at all." But as they watched the Earth fleet begin its systematic dismantling of Zeus's defensive network, they realized it might already be too late. Their arrogance, their dismissal of human potential, had led them to this moment. And now, as the only Loreen ship currently out of orbit, they faced an impossible choice. "The bomb," KRK said suddenly, his voice hard. "It's the only way. We have to end this before it begins." Harrod looked at him in horror. "You can't be serious. Using a planet killer? That's beyond barbaric. Look at what they've already done." KRK gestured wildly at the screen. "They've been deceiving us, building their forces in secret. If we don't stop them now, who knows what else they're capable of." As the argument raged on the bridge, none of them noticed the small signal being broadcast from the human fleet, a message that would have explained everything, a truth that would have changed their perspective entirely. But their instruments, calibrated to detect only what they expected to find, missed it completely. The war that would reshape the galaxy had begun, sparked by a single moment of prejudice and underestimation. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, 3 alien officers found themselves at the center of a conflict that would force them to question everything they thought they knew about humanity. Little did they know, Earth had been preparing for this moment for centuries, waiting patiently as the Galactic Council dismissed them as primitive. Now, as their true capabilities were finally revealed, the question wasn't whether humanity could survive, it was whether the rest of the galaxy could survive humanity's response to this unprovoked attack. The real war was just beginning, and the first shots had already been fired, shadows of deception. The Galactic Council chamber hummed with tension as 6 of the 9 seats filled with the most powerful beings in known space. Emergency lighting cast an ominous red glow across their varied features, some scaled, others crystalline, and a few seemingly composed of pure energy. Supreme Councilor Vexthor, a towering figure with iridescent scales, leaned forward in his seat. "How did we miss this? Our intelligence network spanned galaxies, yet somehow Earth managed to hide an entire military fleet from us." The holographic displays floating in the chamber's center showed the devastation around Zeus. Earth ships moved with precision that shouldn't have been possible, their weapons cutting through defensive systems that had been considered impenetrable. Perhaps that was their intention all along, Counselor Mira, 7, a being of pure light contained within a crystalline matrix, suggested. To be underestimated. The Council's historian, an ancient entity known as the Memory, projected its thoughts directly into their minds. "We have been monitoring Earth for millennia. Their progress appeared linear, predictable. Their wars, their politics, their technological advancement. All followed patterns we've seen in thousands of other species." "Appeared is the key word," interrupted Counselor Zarake, her metallic skin reflecting the emergency lights. "What if everything we've been watching was an elaborate deception?" The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. How long had Earth been capable of interstellar travel? How many other secrets were they hiding? The questions multiplied, each more disturbing than the last. Meanwhile, aboard the Loreen surveillance vessel, KRK and his crew were making their way through an asteroid field, searching for something that might give them a fighting chance against Earth's overwhelming force. "I'm picking up unusual energy readings," Haro announced, his 4 arms working in perfect synchronization across his control panel. "It's coming from that larger asteroid ahead." The massive rock slowly rotated before them, but something about its movement seemed artificial. KRK narrowed his compound eyes, studying the surface carefully. "Those aren't natural formations," he realized. "Those are hangar doors. A secret military installation?" Harrod questioned, his scientific curiosity temporarily overriding his moral objections to their mission. "Out here." As they approached, the asteroid's surface suddenly rippled like liquid metal, revealing a massive opening. Their communications system crackled to life with an encrypted Loreen military frequency they'd never heard before. "Identify yourselves," a gruff voice commanded. KRK exchanged glances with his crew before responding. "This is Officer KRK of the Loreen Surveillance Division. We're seeking emergency military assistance in response to the Earth invasion of Zeus." A long pause followed before the voice returned. "Proceed to Docking Bay 7. Welcome to Project Oracle." As their ship was guided into the asteroid's interior, they found themselves in a vast facility that shouldn't have existed. Rows of experimental weapons lined the walls, and soldiers from various species moved with urgent purpose through the corridors. They were met by Commander Zeldar, a veteran of wars they'd never heard of. His cybernetically enhanced body bore scars from battles that weren't in any official record. "What you're about to learn never leaves this facility," Zeldar began without preamble. "The Council has been preparing for this day for longer than you've been alive." He led them through security checkpoints to a massive chamber dominated by a holographic display of Earth. But this wasn't the Earth they knew from their surveillance data. This Earth was surrounded by quantum distortion fields, temporal shields, and technology that defied their understanding. "We've known about Earth's true capabilities for decades," Zeldar revealed. "But we couldn't act without proving their hostile intent. Now, thanks to your encounter, we finally have the justification we need." You wanted this war." Harrog's voice trembled with disbelief. Zeldar's cybernetic eye pulsed with cold light. "Earth's advancement isn't natural. They've been receiving help, technology and knowledge from something ancient, something that existed before our civilizations. We've detected quantum signatures around their planet that match artifacts we've found in the Outer Rim, artifacts that predate our oldest records." The commander gestured to a weapon unlike anything they'd ever seen. "This is the VX-1000, what you came here for. It's not just a planet killer, it's a reality destroyer. It doesn't just destroy its target, it erases it from existence itself." KRK felt his mandibles twitch with uncertainty. "But why? Why let Earth build up their forces if you knew about them all along?" "Because we needed to see their full capabilities," Zeldar explained. "We needed them to reveal everything they had before we could strike. Your little incident forced their hand perfectly. The implications hit them like a physical blow. They hadn't just stumbled into a war, they'd been unwitting pawns in a much larger game. The Council's apparent dismissal of Earth had been an elaborate ruse, designed to lull humanity into a false sense of security while secret facilities like Project Oracle prepared for the inevitable confrontation. But as they studied the classified reports and hidden surveillance data, a disturbing pattern emerged. Earth's technological advancement wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. The quantum signatures Zeldar mentioned appeared centuries before humans should have been capable of detecting them. And the artifacts they discovered in the Outer Rim, they bore a striking resemblance to ancient human mythology. "There's something else," Haro said suddenly, his scientific mind making connections. "The way their ships appeared at Zeus, it wasn't normal teleportation technology. The quantum wake had temporal elements. They weren't just moving through space. They were moving through time," Zeldar finished. "Now you're beginning to understand what we're really dealing with. Earth isn't just a threat to our military superiority, it's a threat to the very fabric of our reality." As the commander detailed their mission parameters, none of them noticed the small device in the corner of the room, its lights blinking in an unusual pattern. None of them realized that everything they were learning was being transmitted to a receiver far beyond their sensor range. And on Earth, in a facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a group of humans gathered around a similar holographic display, listening to every word. Their expressions were grim but determined. The game of shadows and deception was entering its final phase, and the true nature of humanity's relationship with the galaxy was about to be revealed. The war that had begun with a simple act of prejudice was about to become something far more significant, a conflict that would determine not just the fate of Earth or the Galactic Council, but the very nature of reality itself, the Earth Gambit. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility known only as Nexus Point Alpha, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a wall of holographic displays. Each screen showed a different facet of humanity's greatest deception, a centuries-long operation that had finally entered its endgame. They took the bait, she announced to the assembled group of military leaders and scientists. Project Oracle has revealed itself, just as we predicted. Dr. James Harper, lead scientist of the Temporal Archaeology Division, manipulated a series of complex equations floating in the air before him. His weathered face reflected the blue glow of quantum calculations. The quantum beacon we planted in their facility is transmitting perfectly. Every word, every secret they think they're keeping, we're hearing it all. The room's central hologram showed the Lorraine surveillance vessel docked inside the asteroid base. They watched as KRK and his crew learned about the VX-1000, believing they were being entrusted with classified information. "It's almost poetic," General Maria Santos remarked, her cybernetic implants gleaming. "They think they've been playing us for centuries, while we've been guiding their every move since the beginning." The truth was far more complex than either the Galactic Council or Project Oracle could imagine. Humanity hadn't just been hiding its technological capabilities, it had been shepherding the entire galaxy's development for millennia. "Show them," Chen ordered, and Harper activated the facility's primary database. The holographic displays shifted, revealing images that stretched back through Earth's history. The ancient artifacts found in the Outer Rim hadn't been alien technology influencing human development, they were human technology, carefully placed throughout the galaxy over thousands of years. "Operation Breadcrumb," Harper explained, pulling up classified files that predated modern civilization. "Our ancestors knew that humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology or our weapons, it was our ability to be underestimated." The images showed ancient humans, armed with technology far beyond what modern civilization possessed, seeding the galaxy with artifacts. These weren't just pieces of advanced technology, they were carefully designed markers, each containing a fraction of humanity's true history. "The Council thinks they discovered these artifacts by chance," Chen continued, "but every discovery was orchestrated. Every piece of technology they reverse-engineered was exactly what we wanted them to find. We've been controlling the pace of galactic development since before they achieved space flight." The room's atmosphere grew heavy as they reviewed footage from the recent battle at Zeus. The Earth ships hadn't just appeared from nowhere, they had emerged from temporal pockets, spaces between moments where humanity had been building its forces for centuries. "What about the VX-1000? Santos asked, referring to the weapon Project Oracle was preparing to hand over to KRK and his crew. "Should we let them deploy it?" Chen's expression hardened. "The VX-1000 is exactly where it needs to be. They think it's a reality destroyer, but it's actually the final key in our temporal matrix. The moment they activate it, every quantum beacon we've planted throughout history will synchronize. The true nature of spacetime will be revealed to them." In another part of the facility, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked with a team of quantum engineers, monitoring the temporal fabric around Earth. The planet was surrounded by layers upon layers of quantum fields, each operating on a different temporal frequency. To the outside universe, Earth appeared to be a relatively primitive world just beginning to explore space. In reality, it was the center of a vast temporal web that spanned both space and time. The Council's greatest mistake, Rodriguez explained to her team, was assuming that technological advancement had to be linear. They never considered that a civilization might choose to develop temporally rather than spatially. Instead of expanding across space, humanity had expanded across time, building a civilization that existed in multiple temporal layers simultaneously. The Earth that the Council had been monitoring was just one layer of many, a carefully maintained facade designed to hide humanity's true nature. The quantum signatures that Project Oracle had detected weren't evidence of alien influence, they were echoes of humanity's temporal engineering, bleeding through the carefully maintained barriers between different temporal states. "Admiral," a young lieutenant called out, "we're detecting unusual activity in the asteroid base. They're preparing to move the VX-1000. Chen nodded, unsurprised. "Right on schedule. Initiate Protocol Omega. It's time to show them what happens when you try to trap the trappers. Throughout the facility, ancient systems began to activate. Quantum computers that had been running calculations for centuries reached their final iterations. The temporal web that humanity had spent millennia weaving began to pulse with new energy. Send the signal to all temporal colonies, Chen ordered. Operation Genesis begins now. Across the galaxy, hidden quantum beacons began to resonate. In thousands of locations, carefully placed artifacts started to emit synchronized pulses of temporal energy. The trap that humanity had spent countless generations preparing was finally ready to spring. But as the pieces fell into place, a warning signal flashed across the main display. Something was wrong. The quantum signatures from Project Oracle didn't match their predictions. The Council's weapon wasn't just different from what they expected, it was impossible. This can't be right, Harper muttered, his fingers flying across holographic controls. These readings, they're not just temporal. They're primordial. Chen's face paled as she realized the implications. They found one. All this time, we thought we were the only ones who knew about the architects, but they found one of their artifacts. The room fell silent as the truth sank in. The architects, the true ancestors of all galactic civilization, the beings who had achieved mastery over time itself, hadn't just disappeared. They had hidden themselves, scattered their technology across space and time, waiting for a species worthy of their legacy. And now, in a twist that neither humanity nor the Council had anticipated, both sides had found pieces of that legacy. The war that everyone thought they understood was about to become something else entirely, a race to claim the power of the architects themselves, echoes of the architects. The VX-1000 hummed with an energy that made reality itself shiver. As KRK and his crew prepared to transport the weapon aboard their ship, Commander Zeldar's cybernetic implants began to react strangely. Patterns of light rippled across his mechanical components, forming symbols that shouldn't have been possible. Wait, he commanded, his organic eye widening as he studied the weapon more closely. Something's changing. The surface of the VX-1000 had begun to shift, its metallic shell flowing like liquid mercury. Ancient glyphs appeared and disappeared across its surface, each one radiating with a power that predated the universe itself. By the void, Harag whispered, his scientific instruments going haywire. These readings, they're rewriting themselves. It's as if the weapon is evolving. Deep within Project Oracle's computer core, alarms began to sound. The quantum signatures they'd detected around Earth weren't just similar to the artifact they'd found, they were responding to it. The weapon wasn't just a tool, it was a key, and its presence had triggered something that had laid dormant for eons. Meanwhile, in Nexus Point Alpha, humanity's carefully laid plans were unraveling. Admiral Chen and her team watched in horror as their temporal sensors detected ripples in spacetime that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of their quantum web. The temporal colonization program is destabilizing, Dr. Harper reported, his hands dancing across holographic controls. Whatever that artifact is, it's interfering with our entire network. We're losing control of the timeline. Throughout the galaxy, the carefully placed quantum beacons that humanity had used to maintain their temporal deception began to pulse with new energy. But instead of synchronizing as planned, they were resonating with something else, something older and far more powerful than anything humanity had created. In the Galactic Council chamber, the emergency session was interrupted by a phenomenon none of them had seen before. The space between the council members began to crystallize, forming structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Supreme Councilor Vexthor rose from his seat, his scales reflecting impossible colors. What we're seeing, it's not just technology. It's not just temporal manipulation. This is something else entirely. The memory, the Council's ancient historian, projected a series of images into their minds, fragments of information so old they had been dismissed as myths. The architects hadn't just been advanced beings who had mastered time and space. They had been the ones who had written the laws of physics themselves. Back aboard the Lorraine vessel, KRK watched in amazement as the VX-1000 continued to transform. The weapon they had intended to use against Earth was revealing its true nature, a repository of knowledge that had been waiting for precisely this moment in history. "Look at these symbols," Haro said, his 4 arms working frantically to record everything they were seeing. "They're not just a language. They're instructions." The artifact was showing them images of the universe's creation, revealing how the architects had shaped reality itself. But more than that, it was showing them why they had hidden their legacy, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. In Nexus Point Alpha, Dr. Rodriguez made a startling discovery. "The temporal barriers aren't just failing," she announced, her voice filled with wonder. "They're being repurposed. The architects, they're using our quantum web as a conduit." The truth began to emerge, piece by piece. The architects hadn't disappeared, they had transcended physical existence itself. They had become one with the fabric of space-time, watching and waiting as younger civilizations developed. The artifacts they'd left behind weren't weapons or tools, they were tests. All this time, Chen realized, we thought we were manipulating time, but we were just following a path they laid out for us. Every temporal colony, every quantum beacon, we were building something they designed eons ago. The war between Earth and the Council had never been about military superiority or territorial control. It had been the final step in a grand experiment, one that would determine if their civilizations were ready to inherit the architect's legacy. KRK and his crew found themselves at the center of this revelation. The VX-1000 wasn't meant to destroy Earth, it was meant to initiate first contact with the architects themselves. Their presence, a council race and their stolen human technology, had created the perfect confluence of events to trigger the artifact's awakening. As the device continued to transform, it projected a message that was simultaneously received by every quantum-capable device in the galaxy. The symbols it displayed weren't just a language, they were a key to understanding the true nature of reality itself. "The Council was right about one thing," Herrick said, his voice filled with awe. "Earth was receiving help from something ancient. But so were we all. Everything, every technological advancement, every scientific discovery, it was all leading to this moment." In the depths of space, the quantum beacons humanity had planted began to align with similar devices the Council had discovered, forming a vast network that spanned not just space, but time itself. The temporal web humanity had created and the Project Oracle facility weren't opposing forces, they were two halves of a greater whole. The war that had begun with a simple act of prejudice was revealing itself to be the final test. The architects hadn't been looking for a single worthy species, they had been waiting for different civilizations to move beyond their prejudices and unite in understanding. But as the truth of their situation became clear, a new crisis emerged. The activation of the architects' network had drawn attention from something else, something that had been waiting in the spaces between realities, watching for this very moment. The real test was just beginning, and it would require both humanity and the Council to overcome centuries of mistrust and deception. For in the void between dimensions, ancient enemies of the architects stirred, awakening to challenge those who would claim their creator's legacy.